Hello, everyone. My name is Gerard Thomas. I am back again. Shout out to Kari Brooks. And today I'm here with 21 Questions, which is a virtual show that was created for the sole purpose of connecting and finding common ground with police officers across the United States. I'm also here with Hey Blue, which facilitates moments of meaningful connections between police officers and the communities they serve. I'm also a student council member of Word is Bond. And this is a program that was created for the sole purpose of giving students strong voices in their community and their youth to stand strong and united. So today I have for you Sergeant Jeremy Lahar. This man is extraordinary. I'm bringing him on, and he's going to tell you all about himself.
Okay, I'm waiting to be brought on. Can you see me?
Yes, you're on.
Okay. Well, I can't see myself, so I'm just going to talk. My name is Sergeant Lahar. I'm a patrol sergeant with the Houston Police Department, and I've been doing that for the last year. Before then, I was working in public affairs, community outreach for 5 years, and there I was able to spearhead several initiatives and programs, including the CCC podcast, which I co-host, and then Feet on the Street when we go out and we try and bridge the gap with the community. And it's all about, like we said, finding that common ground and finding different ways to communicate, different vehicles to communicate better so that we're all on the same page. And it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you. It's an honor. You're a very extraordinary man, especially a man of color. You're bringing a lot of change. So we can just go ahead and jump right into it. So what made you become this person that wanted to bring effective change in your police department?
To be honest with you, man, it sounds cliche, but it's kind of like, be the change that you want to see. One of my close friends, she says that all the time. And growing up in a pretty rough neighborhood on the north side of Houston, unfortunately, the only times that I would see the police is when, they would come and maybe taking somebody to jail for, breaking the law. It was rare, besides maybe the DARE program, which, ended while I was in elementary school, but I do kind of remember it, which was trying to get kids not to do drugs. Did I remember those positive interactions with police officers? And along with that, I was raised by a single parent. My mom raised me and my sister, and I didn't really have a lot of positive male role models. So once I grew up and ended up choosing a career in law enforcement, I felt like, God put it in my heart to kind of pay it forward and go back. I go back to the schools in my neighborhood and around the city of Houston to try and teach those kids and to not be afraid of the police like I was and like I was kind of taught to be, unfortunately. Let them know that there are people that look like them out here doing this job, and we are here to help.
Hey, man, I 100% agree, brother. That is what we want. That is the effective change we need. So many young people don't know, especially like me. We don't know. We don't get to see it all the time. I know in Florida, I had a cousin that was a sheriff in our community. That was the only Black sheriff we seen at that time. So it's very good when you see your own, or you're trying to do stuff to bring that connection between police officers and the communities they serve.
Yeah. One of the cool things about Houston, man, is we're a melting pot. Like, it's one of the most diverse cities in the United States. And our chief of police, Chief Acevedo, he really pushes the importance of us mirroring the community that we serve. And so we're a very diverse police department. We have, chiefs, EACs, executive assistant chiefs, commanders, lieutenants, and now myself as a sergeant. We did have people that paved the way, that did break those barriers for us to give us the opportunity. But if you look around, man, we get that a lot. Like, man, there is a lot of diversity within the department, and we pride ourselves on that.
Hey, man, that's what we want to see. I know a lot of other police departments probably don't have that type of diversity. It's great when you do have it, because that's how you really have a true structure in the community. Like, people know who that officer is, or just getting to know that person for who they are is something that I'm big on. So thank you again for, being a part of that. So question 2.
All right.
You have been in Houston. You have been in the Houston Police Department for 8 years. So why is it important now to bring people to bring people in the minority communities and police officers together?
I mean, it's been a goal of mine since I joined the police department back in 2011. I feel like 90% of this job, and this is me speaking personally, is dealing with people and communicating. And if you communicate effectively and in a respectable manner, you talk to people. Basically, let's break it down. Let's be real. If you talk to people the way you want to be talked to, man, you catch more flies with honey than vinegar, right? So I always go out and in my interactions with citizens, and I'm gonna talk to them the way I would want somebody to talk to my mom if she ended up having to call 911 and she had an emergency. And when I go out and I supervise now, I try and really push that home to officers, like, you got to empathize with people. People have to feel like you care and you're not just coming out there to get information to do another report. Like, you have to sometimes put yourself in their shoes and, be able to talk to them, not just about the facts, but about, whatever it is that needs to be talked about on the scene. And I feel like if the community understands that there are more of us out there trying to do that and that we genuinely care, and we took this job on to help them, and we do a good job of effectively communicating, I think we can all, kind of come to a common ground, and a lot of these incidents can be avoided.
I 100% agree. Yesterday, I went to a city council meeting here, well, community meeting, and it was with our officers at the police department, and that's what we were discussing as well, having that connection with officers of treating people just like the homeless, minorities, as people, not a number, not someone that you're supposed to arrest, but saying, "Hey, John, how you doing today? Or how you doing, Linda?" Meeting those people for who they are in that moment. That's how you thrive in a community.
I agree 100%, man. And one of the phrases that our chief coins and repeats and drives home all the time is relational policing. Some people call it community policing. He calls it relational policing because he believes in building those relationships, and I do too. I highly encourage officers that, are in my squad and anybody who's thinking about going into law enforcement to not let the only time that you interact with people be when they call 911. Get out when you go into the grocery store, get out when you go into the gas station to get something to drink or something to snack on, man. Stay in there and talk to people. Be approachable. Talk about sports like we did before the show started. Talk about something that you brought to the table outside of the law enforcement. Don't lose that identity. Use that to connect with people and use that to bridge that gap, so that if something does happen and you go back out to that place, you go back out to that gas station and say a crime did happen, those people that you've been talking to and putting that putting those positive deposits in the bank towards building those relationships, they're going to be more inclined to give you that information that you need to do your investigation out there and figure out what happened.
And I 100% agree, because that is something that I think that our country tends to struggle with. Not all police departments, but majority of some that you see online. You don't get that highlight of, hey, here's a bottle of water, it's hot outside. You don't see that, see those type of highlights. The highlights that we see as people, especially as people of color, we tend to see the violent side of it, and the cruel side of it. So having people know that, hey, it's okay to speak and it's okay to go out there and speak to officers, or having the officer come up and say, hey, how you doing today? How was school? What did you get on your test today at school? That is something that is much needed. And that will really change a lot of stuff that we tend to fear in the police department.
Yeah, one of the things that really kind of makes my leg itch a little bit, and I've told this several times, I've said it on the podcast that we do with HPD, is I cannot stand when I'm out in the public, or if I'm, working security somewhere and a parent comes in with a child and she's like, if you don't listen, that officer's going to take you to jail. I cannot stand that, because I'll in the most respectful way possible, I'll be like, please don't tell them that, because if you go over there on aisle 3 and you slip on a jar of pickles and bust your head, the kid's going to be scared to come and tell me that you need help. We want to let the kids know that we're here to help them. We don't want to instill that fear in them. That's your job as a parent, to not have to say something like that. They need to be like, hey, I want to go talk to this officer. So I make it, you know, it's my business, and I'm going in my little pocket right here. Anytime I see a kid, man, I give them one of these. You know what I mean? And it goes a long way. Like, I know y'all laugh, it's funny, but that goes a long way. I always have stickers on me to the point now, like if I go back out to a complex and I gave something out before, those kids see me and they come up to me and they're like, you know, do you have some more? And if I don't, I'll go get them and come back. But it's little things like that that go a long way, that if, you know, this person does it there, that person does it there, we're improving that perception one step at a time. It's not going to happen overnight.
It's crazy that you had that, because when I was young, giving stickers was the biggest key of making that connection with someone. It's like when you go to the doctor's office,
they're gold to kids.
That was the golden spot right there, because I remember like when I used to go to the doctor's office, you know, right before you used to be scared, I'm going to get a shot. Hey, here's a bunch of stickers. Choose the one you want. I don't think enough people do that anymore with young adults or young kids in general. So they don't know, okay, it's okay to take something from this officer. He's giving you something to show, hey, and it used to be exciting to be a police officer with the sticker on. You make kids feel like they're an officer, and they follow down that path. So I think that's the greatest way to build that connection with the younger generation.
And one of the programs that I was afforded to be able to create, because I had the support of public affairs when I was there, was the Badges and Bears program. And I did that in the memory of my sister who passed away, Savard. She passed away from complications of a lung transplant. I appreciate that. But what I always try and take my personal identity and my experiences and then bring it into the department and find a way to make the department better and you know, improve on those relationships. And the thing that we would do, my sister was always in the hospital and I was always going to see her. And I remember it would be her husband, my mom, and me, and the doctors and the nurses poking on her all the time, right? But I felt like, you know, there's a lot of people, there are a lot of kids in the hospital, and that's all they see. Well, what if we can go in as police officers and be another face, a new face, a friendly face, and we can take stickers, we can take coloring books, we can take teddy bears that are donated from businesses from around the Houston area, and let them choose whatever bear they want. And we'll play video games with them, we'll color with them, and take their mind temporarily off whatever it is that's keeping them in the hospital for an extended stay. Or they may just be there for a minute. But if we can give them that sticker and give them that positive interaction and that good memory of police officers, it goes a long way.
Absolutely, brother. And I 100% agree. That is something that is much needed. That will start a new era of something that has been long lasting with this vulgar state, something that all officers have to face in order to make it. You know, you don't see an officer get as much accomplishments as other people may think they would. Now it's like a sin if you call a police officer to your house, or it's a sin, and that's how it is in school now. You have your high school patrol officer. That connection is somewhat lost, because it used to be where you go inside that office, or like my high school patrol officer at our school. I'm very close with him. He plays basketball with us. He's the basketball coach as well, and his son goes to the school. So it's just like he even dropped me off home once. So it's just like those type of connections are impactful, where you just give them a fist pump and you're like, hey, how was school today? What did you get on that test? They're like, how's your mom doing? You know,
that's crazy that you say that, and I'm glad that you have somebody at your school that does that for you. And I'll tell you something that a lot of people may not know. I had a school resource officer that I was really close with in middle school, and he looked out for me. And then I had one in high school. And like I told you, growing up single parent home, I played football in high school and college, right? But we had a school resource officer from HPD, and he also coached on the side after schools. He played college football, so he would come out there and help. Well, I was 14, I was a freshman, and he took a liking to me, and he ended up taking me under his wing. And I would stay after practice late with him. I would stay and lift weights. He taught me how to lift weights. And I really learned a lot from him. And I call him my godfather now. That's how close the relationship came. And when I initially graduated from college with a degree in communications, I didn't want to be a police officer. That wasn't my goal. I was going to go teach. I wanted to be on the radio or something like that. Well, it was because of him that I joined the police department. You know, that relationship that was built when I was 14. And it came full circle when I went through the academy and came out. He was my field training officer. So he trained me. So, you know, you never know what kind of positive impact you'll have on kids. May not be that big to you, but I guarantee, you know, like you said, you're going to remember that. And I hope, you know, I don't expect to connect with every kid that I speak to in a class of 30, but if I can stop 2 of them from making a bad decision because of a conversation that we may have had, I'm doing my job.
Amen. 100% agree. So question 3.
Okay.
Do you believe that young people, young minorities in the Black culture are listening to what you're trying to do or what you're saying?
Oh, that's funny, man. I love the challenge of going into high schools and middle schools. Those are harder to connect with kids, right? That's probably what you're referring to when you say young people. The elementary school kids, I crack a couple jokes, laugh, smile, act silly. I got them. Well, I love going into some of the hardest high schools in Houston. And when I go up in front of the class and I start talking, everybody's got their hands, you know, their arms folded, they're dismissive, they're not paying attention, right? But when I talk to them like I'm talking to you, and I let them know I'm from the neighborhood just like y'all are, and I'm doing this job because I want to help people. And it's okay to help people. As much as the neighborhood tells you, you know, you're not supposed to deal with the police. But by the end of that class and by the end of that presentation, man, those kids that had their arms folded are the ones that are coming trying to take pictures with me. The ones that are trying to look up my handle on Instagram. The ones that want me to come back and follow up with them, and I'm you know, exchanging information with them. So to answer your question, and like I just kind of alluded to a second ago, I'm not going to reach everybody when I go and speak to a large group of kids, 100 to 30 to 5 to 3 kids. But I'm going to give that same energy and I'm going to show that same compassion because I do care. And I feel like real recognize real, basically. And kids can tell when it's authentic. And they can tell when you actually care and you're trying to teach them something and look out for them. And I feel like more of them than not are listening. But every now and then you're going to have some that it may take them a little bit longer to come back around. But I'm always there whenever they're ready.
I 100%. I was listening, and everything you said was absolutely what I wanted to hear, because that is very true. People recognize real, and people know when it's very authentic or what you're trying to get across is real, because we're living in a time of era where a lot of stuff is corrupt. Mm-hmm. People are not being taught the correct values of which they're supposed to stand for. We have a lot of young men of color that don't know what a man is. So they start to try to choose an identity of which they should form themselves to be. So it's just like when they look up to you, they're like, I see this brother that is out here doing something very important in the community, and he's changing lives every day. I want to go after that. That's my new role model. No more looking at these other people that are not doing something that's effective enough, but they're looking at people to make those right choices. Because what you're doing will be a long-lasting era. It will be a long-lasting situation, because we have so many people that are out here every single day that don't get to experience that part. So you have a lot of people that say, I've been arrested. The police, you know, they stopped me for this. They stopped me for that instance. But they know mm-hmm. when they see Sergeant Jeremy Lahar, they're like, no, if you pulled me over, it was correct.
Yeah. And I mean, you can't get mad at people for feeling the way that they feel about, you know, having a bad experience or interaction with a police officer. And I'll have that in the classes. I'll have that when I'm going to speaking to senior citizens or when I'm going to barber colleges and talking to people. You got people that's out of the jail. Like, man, I ain't like that. When this happened. I say, man, you know what? I apologize. I wasn't there and it wasn't me. But I'll ask you this, you know, like I talk to the kids. I talk to the kids and I'm like, you know, I say, by raising hands, how many of you all have teachers that you just love going to their class? You learn, they make learning fun, you know, they joke around with you, it's enjoyable. You can't wait to get to their class. Everybody raise their hands. I say, now by raising hands, do not say their name out loud because they may be in their class at the time. do you have a teacher who you can't stand because you feel like, for whatever reason, you just don't care for them, right? And everybody raised their hands. They all have that one. I said, okay, well, cool. I'm glad that you have both sides of the spectrum. Now, when you leave that teacher's class that you can't stand and that you have a negative interaction with, do you go into the next teacher's class and the teacher's like, okay, class, get your books out? No, man, I don't want to hear that. The last teacher I had a bad interaction with them and a bad experience. All y'all like that. Everybody who a teacher is the same way. That's not how it works. You have good teachers. You have teachers who aren't that good. You have good police officers. You have police officers that don't do their job well and they give us a bad perception. So you can't, put us all and kind of generalize everybody and put us all in the same bucket as just bad apples. But I'm not going to say this. You know how you hear that cliche? One bad apple doesn't spoil the bunch. You ever heard that before?
Well, I heard that plenty of times.
Yeah. Me and my mom had that conversation and she said that. I said, Mom, Mama, I agree with you, but one bad apple doesn't spoil a bunch. But if you don't address the issue and remove that apple, the apple may not spoil a bunch, but the maggots and the flies will. So it's up to us. If you have other officers out there not doing stuff the way they're supposed to, you have to address that issue and remove them or redirect them, or maybe they just don't need to do this job anymore.
And you're saying the officer should, or the community should?
The officers.
Yes.
I mean, because you see these people every day, man, and it's not okay for you to turn your head and pretend you don't see something. Right is right and wrong is wrong. And you took an oath to uphold right. So you don't get to, if you're going to hold people accountable, you have to hold yourself accountable. You have to hold your colleagues accountable as well.
And I think that is absolutely true, because majority of the time we have the worst experiences with officers, all for real. You're taught at a very young age, like we said before in the previous question, that, you're raised, or the way that you're brought up, you're raised to be a certain way with the officer, how to act, how to be by that person, or what you should do. And that throws off the good officer, just like you, that is trying to make a true difference. And it's very hard because the previous officer or the previous person in that community did something so terrible that it's hard for a new officer that really wants to know what the people are feeling or what is the need that they need. It makes your job 10 times harder, but it also makes it harder in the community. Yeah,
and I don't take it personal. You know what I mean? If some people they don't want to hear what I'm saying, and I respect that. I can't make you understand my side of everything, but I do believe in karma. And I've been doing this job coming up on 10 years, and just have you ever done a ride along yet?
No.
Okay, so if you have Houston is busy. Some parts of town are busier than others. Now, if you were to ride with me on a busy part of town on a regular day, you're going to go to about 12, 13 calls. That's 12, 13 interactions. 5 of those interactions may have 10 people there, right? The other 5 may have 20 people there, and then the last may have a one-on-one interaction. Now, if I'm just carrying bad karma, I'm disrespecting people, I'm cussing this person out, I'm making up reasons to take this person to jail, and they don't really need to go to jail. I can't remember all of those people's faces because I got to come back the next day and do it again for a full shift. And do you think that they're going to remember my face?
Yes, of course.
Exactly. They're going to remember that interaction. So I don't wear this uniform 24 hours a day. So I'm always like, I'm going to do right by people because I don't want to be out in public with my family and then somebody approach me and be like, say, man, you remember me? No, I don't. And then it catches up with you. But I have had people approach me and be like, hey, man, you remember me? And I'll be like, no, can you remind me? Well, my son was doing this, that, and the other, and you took the extra time to talk to him, and he's doing better in school. I just wanted to let you know that. Oh, hey, man, you remember you let us make it on this, that, and the other? That's what we need more of.
That is exactly what I wanted to hear, because that is something that you don't get a lot of. You get more so of is the opposite. Hey, you remember when you put my son in jail? Or hey, you remember when you sat on my son's neck for 9 minutes? So that's what we really want to hear. especially when you have a young man. That's why I keep referring to men, because in this time, it is more needed of knowing the true basis of what a real man is, of knowing who you are and what you stand for. What are your values? What is your purpose in life? A lot of people don't know their purpose. So when you have this role model in your community and he's teaching you, and sometimes you have to discipline in order to show tough love. And when you give that tough love, they know that it's not in a bad way. It's to make them better. That makes your job and that makes the community much a safer place. And 9 times out of 10, when we have problems with crime rates, I think those crime rates will drop dramatically because of those type of true connections.
Yeah, and like you said, unfortunately, man, a lot of times, different circumstances. It's like my circumstance. I had to figure out a lot of these lessons on my own because I didn't have that man there to teach me, right?
Yes.
So I think it's important that people like myself and people like you, we go back and we talk to people that are younger than us and let them know, like, hey, I had to figure this out on my own, but it's a hole out there. You may want to go around it because I don't want you to step in it and roll your ankle, right? Because it hurts. Yes. So if you can avoid making the mistakes that I made and go further than me, like, don't look at what I'm doing, like, do better than me. You know, I'm always going to encourage you to exceed what I'm trying to accomplish.
Amen. So we have question 4.
Okay.
Do you believe that Houston, this conservative state, will ever change for the greater good of minorities in the community?
I would say Texas is a conservative state. Houston, while we do have a lot of conservatives living here, as I spoke on earlier, we're a very diverse city. We are a melting pot. We have a mayor who is African American. We have a chief who is of Cuban descent. We have a fire chief who is of Black descent. We have a HIS. Like a lot of the schools, their chiefs are all minorities. So it can do nothing but let the kids that are growing up thinking about going into law enforcement, it gives them something to strive for. Like, man, that person looks like, man, he's the chief. I can do that too, right? So while we still have a long way to go, I feel like we're a lot further along than a lot of other cities, just because of just demographics, man. You know what I mean? Like, if you just drive through Houston, you have parts of town that are predominantly one ethnicity and one background, and then you have the others. But if you go to an open place like the Galleria or something like that, you're going to see people from all different nationalities. And I think that's beautiful. That's the great thing about Houston. That's why I love living here.
Now, if it was the opposite way, though,
okay.
If it was because sometimes we do experience this too, where our own would try to hurt us. Your own would try to cripple you. Your own would try to throw you in jail. Your own, So if that was vice versa, how would you make that change if it was the opposite way?
You saying if Houston wasn't as diverse as it is?
Well, you have diversity, right?
Okay.
You have Black leaders. But what if those same Black leaders aren't doing what they're supposed to do for minorities in their communities?
I mean, just like we ask citizens to hold us accountable, it's up to us to hold our elected leaders accountable. It's up to us it's up to citizens to hold the chiefs accountable, and it's up to officers to let the chiefs know what we need. You're not going to agree with everything that your boss says. I don't care where you walk at. I mean, where you work. But I mean, if they're doing more things to benefit everyone, I mean, you got to kind of roll with it. And if not, you're going to have to, do what you can to get with unions or get with other organizations to get their attention and let them know that there needs to be a change.
Okay. And I just wanted to piggyback off something. You said that Houston, don't want to put any words in your mouth, but you said that Houston still had some type of the other groups on different sides. Now, mind you, you see in the back, I'm going to Alabama. Yep. So I heard that is very bad in Alabama. And, in Houston, you said that it's very diverse, but you still have some areas where it's not. what would what would you do? What are you thinking to do? Or what are your plans to do to bring some type of diversity in those areas? Or are you just leaving it alone?
No, I mean I'm also the vice president of the Afro Americans Police Officers League. So the reason I joined that organization is because their mission of not only looking out for minority, and because we have members that are not just minorities, they're Caucasian and others ethnicities, but um, the reason why I like APOL and the reason why I got involved with APOL is because they understand the importance of connecting with the community. Right. So we have to put organizations like that in place to make sure that we're holding people accountable, so that everybody's kind of getting a fair shake. And I'm not going to sit here and say that everything's perfect everywhere, but we have come a long way. And I encourage you to go look up apol.org and look at the history and why it got started. And I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you as a sergeant if it wasn't for APOL. But maybe a lot of other smaller agencies or agencies in other cities may want to adopt that and try and put those type of organizations in place to make sure that it's not too one-sided.
I think we need that because I live in Florida. We have some progress, but we have tons of work to do in order to make some real change. As you know, Florida is a very red state. So we have a lot of errors and hiccups, but we're growing. And like I said, I went to the community meeting yesterday, and I seen, it was a diverse group, but also it was a lot of older people. So older people don't have the same views as younger people. So I was just thinking, I was like, we have to have more younger people in those situations. Because it is, like you said before, it is very diverse now. With a lot of things. And I think that it's a lot of the older generation, starting from like 60 and down. It's just that they keep that same segregated mindset. And it is very hard for someone that is growing up in that environment to break free from it.
Yeah. I mean, you can't expect people to change their stripes when they've been doing something a certain way for 60 plus years, right? But all you can do is put forth the effort to try and enlighten and educate and try and get them to see things from a different perspective. And you're not going to reach everybody, man. Just like some people are set in their ways at 20, right? Unfortunately. And they're not trying to grow as a person. I'm always self-assessing myself and trying to figure out how I can be a better man, a better husband, a better father, and a better sergeant and mentor. And I mean, I think if more of us did that, then you wouldn't have as much of what you're talking about as far as people not embracing the change that's going to positively affect everybody. It's not anything negative.
Absolutely. So let's just go ahead and we're going to just jump into writing a question 5. Okay. Do you think every police department in the United States should have a public affairs community outreach unit to build a positive relationship with citizens of all ages, which you did speak on previously?
Absolutely. I mean, law enforcement is mostly reactive, right? A crime is committed and we have to react to it. And we have to go and try and do our investigation, hopefully catch somebody in the process of committing the crime. Now, you have some proactive units, right, that are specifically trying to target those crimes and stop those crimes from happening, right? Catch those criminals. I promise you this, you can ask anybody who knows me. I look at community outreach and public affairs as a proactive division because it's our job to go out here and communicate and connect and come to a common ground with people so that if I can go out and speak to people, or if I can put a video together to educate people on what to do when dealing with a certain crime or coming in contact with a police officer on a traffic stop, if I can get them to follow these 3, 4, 5 steps like I do when I go talk to the kids in high school who are just starting to drive, if you can do that, and it'll avoid you having an incident like all these incidents that are happening all over the United States where people, end up unfortunately getting shot or worse. That's proactive to me. And if we can reach those groups of kids and those generations of kids in elementary school and middle school and high school, and they have that respect for police officers, not because we wear a badge and we demand respect, but because we come out there and they understand that we're just like them and we're trying to help people, then that's going to improve the overall interaction when you come in contact with them. They're not going to be afraid of you. They're going to respect you, and they're going to do things and carry themselves a certain way. So I 100% think that community outreach and public affairs should be in every department all over the United States.
I think that's very true, because I interviewed an officer previously, and he had the same issue of, speaking. We had the issue of the status quota, which you're not supposed to have, but it was towards young minority and people of color from 14 to 21. And that was their outreach. That was how they did their public affairs, was doing that duty. And 9 times out of 10, a lot of police departments don't try to think of the greater good. Not saying all, but the other half, they don't. They think about the numbers and how to fill up this jail and how to get taxpayer dollars and how to keep the system going. And when I guess if you try to disrupt with something that has been for so long, it goes nowhere. Like it's.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, how do you eat an elephant, right? One piece at a time. Like you're not gonna get rid of the elephant in the room overnight. But if you have people like yourself, people like myself, people who I know who are out here putting in the work to try and do that, that change is going to come. And it may not come 100% across the board where it's just really visible and you can see it in our lifetime. But I have 3 children, and if I can make some changes for them so that they can have a better interaction and things can be improved for them, then I'm all for it.
You almost made me start singing when you said change gonna come. Thought about Sam Cooke. I was like, let me go ahead and start singing, but I 100% agree with you. So we're just gonna go ahead and jump on the question 6.
Okay.
I listened to your Triple C podcast, episode 20. Okay. It was with your Chief Art.
Yeah, Chief Acevedo.
Yeah. And it was something that I wanted to point out, to clear up. You had put out you spoke and you said, I want to forget 2020 and start with 2021. Some people took that to offense.
Okay. Oh no. Okay. I know how that could have been taken. I got you. And rightfully so. Yeah.
A lot of people I wanted to clear it up for you because I was like, he's not that dude.
No. I can definitely explain what I was doing. Now, if you just watched episode 20 and you're like, you don't know me and you don't know how I joke, and you took that literally, then I apologize to whoever I may have upset or offended. But when I said skip 2020, I don't mean skip the progress. I mean skip the negativity, like the pandemic. People being laid off, people's mental health being tested. Because I talk to my wife about that all the time. I always wonder, like, man, when all of this stuff is going on, who is checking on these people with mental health issues? Because like if life isn't hard enough, now you're getting laid off and you're being evicted, and all of that stuff is going on top of the pandemic. You got to wear a mask. You can't go out. You can't go outside. The schools are closed. You can't find daycare. You can't afford daycare. Like, that's what I meant by skipping 2020. And I said it in a joking way. And I, by no means was I trying to skip the things that took place as far as law enforcement and the steps forward that we've taken as far as racial and social injustices taking place and the changes that are being put in place now. And just all of the conflict and just people coming out and showing hate it just really was a disappointing year for me. It just in people in general, just with all of I'm not gonna go into politics, but just people really showing their true colors. People that you may work with, people that you may have saw as friends.
Hey man,
you look at them and you like,
this is you,
man. You really like, you think you know people, but you don't. And to each his own, man. But like I said at the beginning, right is right and wrong is wrong. There was a lot of wrong going on in 2020, and I'm not by no means trying to downplay it. We have to remember it so that we don't repeat it. That was more so just like a joke, like, man, let's just forget that I still have this mask on. You know what I mean? And I'm still waiting to try and get my mom the vaccine, but she's been on the waiting list for months. So like, that's what I meant. All the hectic and stress that's going on, that's carried over into 2021. By no means, in no way was I trying to skip over people losing their loved ones to COVID, and George Floyd losing his life, and some of those other incidents that took place that we've hopefully learned from, and they won't repeat themselves.
And I 100% agree. So question 7.
Okay.
And just to let the people know again, we were just trying to clarify what was going on, what was said. He's a very
hey man, ain't no bad question.
No, I'm saying for the viewers, so they don't be like, oh, this is because how people, they will twist the words.
No. Go to episode 20 and watch it, and then go watch the other 19 and see how I joke, and then you'll get a feel for my sense of humor. So that's my bad. Sometimes I do it with a straight face, and you can't tell. But everybody else knew. They laughed, and I guess it could be taken from the outside looking in, like, oh, they just laughing at all of the stuff that happened as it relates to law enforcement. That is not what was going on.
Absolutely. So thank you for clarifying for the people. And people, you see, this is a great man. So speaking of that, you're a very extraordinary man of color, but also a man in a black and blue uniform. But did you experience some type of racism within your police department or in your community?
Have I experienced it in my community?
Yes.
Yeah. Growing up, of course. Been followed around the store several times. In school, I been accused of cheating because I raised my hand and answered too many questions, and they couldn't believe that. I come a long way. Okay, I used to have braids and baggy clothes and all that stuff. So I've grown up as we mature, right? Yeah. And they didn't believe that, so they questioned me and pulled me out the classroom and was like, "Well, how do I know you didn't cheat?" And I'm like, it just made me grow up. And then I went to college in Iowa. So I went to college in Iowa, where there's not really a lot of diversity up there. I went to a small college, a private college, and I experienced it up there as well. People going on the other side of the street when we were walking in groups, and we played for the football team that they came out there and watched on Saturdays. And so, I try and leave an impression, a positive impression on people, hopefully to make them think outside the box wherever I go. So my senior project before I left is I made a documentary on the lack of diversity at Morningside, which was my school. And it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. But how do you feel? How do you think minorities feel about being rubbed the wrong way? So let me make you a little bit uncomfortable so you can see how uncomfortable we are.
Because we just sorry to cut you off, but me and Miss Tammy, what you met, we were speaking about that as well. She was saying, like, when you go in the elevator and somebody rubs against you, or you're walking in, like, everybody in the elevator, you feel like you the president of someone because everybody's backed up. No security, but everyone's backed up. Yeah. And you don't know it, or you try not to notice it because you like, I have somewhere to go. I'm not even worried about how you feeling right now. But then after you get, your situation done or whatnot, or you get done with your work, you come back and you like, did they just try me?
Man, that's the way I look at it, man, that's their problem. And if they don't want to take the time to get to know yourself and get to know me, that's their loss. And that the excuse that people would have up there is, I come from a small town. We only had one black person in the whole town, so I just go off of what I see on TV. Okay, that's not a valid excuse.
But we're
You
small.
need to, what I mean? Like, be open. And for people who say I don't see color, that's a cop out too. How do you know when to go when you're at a red light? You know what I'm saying? So, like, I have experienced racism. I don't walk around here, like conspiracy brother or nothing like that.
Yeah.
I laugh at it now. I would rather educate people more on it. And as far as within the police department, like I told you, I am a part of APOL. I haven't experienced it personally, but whenever people may have felt like they've experienced it, or they have a grievance, or they want to make an anonymous complaint or tip, we put those avenues in place for them to do that and not be afraid of being retaliated against, or losing their jobs. So it happens everywhere, man. Corporate America, teaching, everywhere, right? We've come a long way, but we have a long way to go.
And that's what
yeah, I mean, it is what it is, man. It is what it is.
I try to figure that out too as well, because I'm like, way back when I was doing a lot of history, when they first brought us over here, we built everything, and black people have, basically built the country. It was built off the slaves. And so many black people that, paved the way had to build and keep building and keep doing those type of things. And then you turn around in 2020 or 2021 and people are like, oh, you're just small-minded, or you can't be you. You can't be your authentic self because you're scared that in this particular area, or if you're making this business decision, that you won't be taken seriously if you got your Black Lives Matter on. You better take that off right before you get inside that room, because you may offend someone.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the beauty of living in this country, is the freedom of speech, whether it be on your shirt or what you say. But those words are like bullets, man. Once you say them, you can't take them back. So it's about knowing when to say something, right? And not saying it just to feel like, man, I said what I said and they gonna feel me. Like, no, it's about wearing the right hat at the right time and saying things. It's not about what you say, it's how you say it to get your point across. If I'm making myself clear.
That's making a lot. You outdone it, because it takes wisdom, maturity, and intelligence.
Oh, I didn't have it when I was. You're way more mature than I was when I was your age. Let me give you that much, sir. What you're talking about purpose. Yeah, you're talking about purpose and knowing your purpose. I didn't know what that was when I was your age. So I applaud you for that, man. Like, keep that up. Because I know people twice my age that still haven't found theirs.
And I know some as well. So question 8, what can you teach young men in this country, young people in this country, about the importance of getting the education, but most importantly, getting the education as a man of color?
Okay, that's a great question. My mom always taught me, she said, baby, get your education because they can't take it from you once you have it, right? Once you get that piece of paper, and that's all it is, and that's what I go out here and I talk to these high school kids about, and I wish that counselors would do a better job of putting the kids on game. Like, all a college degree is a piece of paper that's going to open more doors for you. So a bachelor's, that piece of paper that says you have a bachelor's, is going to tell employers that you finished what you start and you know how to manage your time like an adult. And you might have some student loan debt. It's going to tell them that too. But and then when you get the master's, it's like, okay, this guy's really, he's setting goals. He's continuing to work, or he went straight through, or she went straight through. And I can count on this person to get stuff done. PhD, same thing. But the same way that I didn't see police officers coming and talking to kids in my neighborhood in a positive way growing up, I didn't see a lot of men of color coming back and telling kids the importance of going to school and getting those degrees. And there weren't people walking around with masters. There weren't people walking around with PhDs. I had a counselor that kind of planted that seed in my head. And I don't know, man. My mom went to college, but she didn't finish. I love her to death. So, in my immediate family, between my mom and my sister, I was the first one to get my degree. And I don't know where that came from. My mom didn't push me. She was going to support me 100% in whatever I did, but I wasn't a straight A student. But it's just something in me. It's like, you know what? If God gives you the knowledge and you know that you're smart enough to accomplish a goal, go back and do it. So I went back and got my master's. And a good thing about our department is they do tuition reimbursement. So there's really no excuse for you not to further your education. So when I go get my master's, it's not to clout, throw it in people's faces, because it really doesn't mean it's another piece of paper. But I'm already in my career. So I use that to go back and tell kids, hey, man, the master's is easier than the bachelor's. They don't tell you that. It is. It's paper writing. And if you can write papers, which you write reports at work every day, you can do your master's. And starting May, I'm supposed to be, God willing, going back to get my PhD. Never thought about doing that, but it's like, I appreciate it. But it's like, why not? Right? Why not? You know what I mean? Raise the bar for my kids. Raise the bar for these kids that I go and speak to. Because how you gonna ask them to do something that you haven't done, right? If a kid like me, coming from the background that I came from, can overcome my circumstances, I always talk about that. Don't take your testimony and don't take your you overcoming adversity for granted, because you never know who you might help when they hear how you got out of the mud. Okay, so he took this step, that step, and that step. I can do that too. He looks like me. So we need to share that more often, and we need to, continue to go to the next level and accomplish those goals, not just for ourselves to show out, but you never know who's watching you that sees themselves in you, and they're going to do the same thing because you paved the way for them.
I mean, you just hit so many key notes that I had to stay here and be like, listen, this is the main thing that I wanted to hear. I never heard an officer yet speak about the importance of getting it, but also doing it. We can also go back and say, hey, this is what the community needs to do. But when you're doing it, it's a completely different slate. That is something that's important to me. It's funny because I have ADHD.
Me too.
And see, so we know the struggles.
Yeah, like squirrel.
Yeah. And no one told me, from when I was a child, they used to always say, oh, he might have dyslexia, or, he might be a little bit off. And when I got to 5th grade, I had so much determination. I was like, I want to go to public school. Mm-hmm. And I told my grandmother I want to go to public school. And she owned 3 pre-K schools for 20 years.
Okay. So,
and I had to go to her house, and I was like, Grandma, they're not letting me go to, the public school unless I can do so-and-so. And she was like, okay. I sat there that whole entire summer, and I learned so much in 5th grade. And I had to come back, and I was like, I'm going to make principal honor. I made principal honor. They thought it was a rig. It was like, no way. Then I came back, and I was like the National Honor Society. But I say all that because the determination I have within myself, even now, I look back on then and I say, I couldn't accomplish so many things because they were taken from me. And a lot of people don't know the value of having that education, because I believe every Black mother has told their child, once you get that education, they can take your money. My nana used to say they can take your money, they can take your legs, they can take your arm, they can shoot you. The only way they can get this is if they kill you. That's the only way they're going to get it. And she said they can't get it then because it goes with you. And that knowledge, knowing, speaking proper English. You don't have to look at these other people and be like, oh, that's how you make money. But going into those business rooms and knowing your stuff, they cannot, the system, and going off what you just said, my Uncle Sylvester, he doesn't believe that it's a thing called a black man can't make it because of the white system. That's what he says.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that feel that way, man, unfortunately.
And it's 2 sides to that story. But like you just said, I'm getting my PhD. Nobody could stop you. That was your goal. It's something that when God has something in store for you, no one can stand in that way. They can either block the door, but trust me, it's gonna be somebody that'll open it. So,
and I just, what's for you is for you, man. What's for you is for you. And if you just continue and try your best to stay down the path that he has laid out for you and run your race at your pace, and don't look to the left and look to the right and compare yourself to what this person is doing and how they accomplishing this stuff faster than you, you're gonna get where you're supposed to go when you're supposed to go. If we talk outside of here and I tell you how I got to this point and some of the things that I've been through and how things could have went left for me just from the people that I was around, that I grew up with, you'll be like, man, it ain't nothing but God. And I don't go to church every Sunday, but I have a relationship with God. I'm more spiritual than religious. And I do believe in him. And I feel like he puts every idea, every initiative, every, goal that we have, he puts it in your head for you. He put it in my head for me. He ain't put Badgers and Bears in nobody else's head. He didn't put the Triple C podcast in anybody else's head. He put it in my head, and I could have sat on it and procrastinated, right? But Amen. I feel like I have to get it out because it's he put it there so that I could use it to help people. And I feel like that's what part of my purpose, which is helping people, and speaking, public speaking, mentoring, like talking. Like if you have ADD, like I did, talking is what got me in trouble all the time. Yep. And now, when I was in public affairs, it was my job. That's my career, is to talk, and I have 2 degrees in talking, hopefully 3. So I can't stand when kids, they start getting down on themselves, and even grown-ups, man, like they start defeating themselves before they even enter in the game. You know what I mean? Like, oh man, I might as well not even try. Like, no, you miss every shot you don't take, and your circumstances are not an excuse for you not to accomplish your goals. Because just like you, I thought everybody wrote lists. If I don't write a list, if I don't put stuff in my phone, I forget. And that just comes with ADD, because I have so much stuff going on in my head that, I have to manage that.
Yep.
But there's no excuse for me to be like, oh, woe is me, I can't do this, that, and the other. Like, no, I know my limitations. My limitations are math. Can't do math. And I think that came with that too. But I know how to overcome it, and it sounds like you're figuring out how to overcome yours. So there's no excuses, man. You just got to get it done.
Absolutely. I didn't find out I had ADHD until my junior year, which was last year of high school. And it took me a while because I was hurt. I was like, how could I have this?
Nothing wrong with you, man.
Yeah, and I said,
and that's when you realize that, and you do your homework, and you realize how many brilliant people have it.
Yep.
And successful people have it. It's like, okay, I'm just another person.
And that's what I had to do. I had to listen to so many doctors that had different attorneys, that have different politicians that you don't even know of, that won't say their names, that have this. Because she says everybody around the world has ADHD. It's just that when you're diagnosed with it, it's a different level. And I said, I accept what God gave me. I said, it was a reason he gave it to me. But like you can see, people that have a certain stigma on them always overcome it. And that's how you persevere. You make decisions. And I always tell people, don't think because I have ADHD, I can't make the right choices or I won't get there on time. I can. So I always try to make sure I manage, because I'm like, I won't have, hey, mom, could you help me? I won't have that. I have to make sure I'm determined off my own self-will. Yeah.
And it's just about, holding yourself accountable and knowing where you have to work a little bit harder in certain areas than other people do. Amen. I mean, that's pretty much it. And I'm not finna get down on myself, but I mean, I still have both my legs, both my hands. You have people with dementia. Like, there's people overcoming a whole lot more. You have public motivational speakers with no limbs, and they're up there inspiring millions of people. So, like, and I'll just say this before we get to the next question, man. Like, whenever I started feeling sorry and started feeling like not getting up and going to class at 8 a.m. when it was like 10 degrees in Iowa, I thought about my mom getting up, and we didn't have a car, and she was catching the metro to go to one job, and then got off from that job, caught the metro to the next job, and then came home tired, but she didn't complain. So I was like, man, get your butt up and go to class. This is class. It's a couple hours. It's cold. It's uncomfortable. You don't want to be there. But if I want to put myself in a position and put my future family in a position, because I didn't know I was going to have kids at that time, I got to put the work in, and I can't waste time, because you can't get time back. And I'm all about maximizing opportunities.
Absolutely. And I think, if any young people, especially young men, please reach out to Sergeant Jeremy Lahar and listen to his podcast, because this is what you need to be mentored on. And I will be keeping in contact with you after this as well.
Definitely.
So we have question 9. Are all men of color getting equal opportunities in the police department more than the Black culture realizes?
like I said, I can only speak on HPD. I can't speak on like people, other departments in other states. I know HPD in the past that wasn't the case. But there was a lawsuit put in place, and and then APOL was established, and then the union put some things in place as far as a contract, to where now everybody has an even playing field as far as taking the sergeant test, taking the lieutenant test, taking the captain test. There's no like, oh, okay, I want you to be a sergeant because I like your work ethic. You can't really you can't really make sure that people are doing that the right way, right?
Yes.
But if you put everybody on a level playing field, as a level as it can be, because I'm a terrible test taker. Like I had to read 16 hours a day. And some people could just read 2 weeks and do great on it. But that's about as level as it can get. Everybody's taking the same test. As far as concerned divisions, some of them are a little bit, you have more people of this background in it than that background. But then that's kind of shrewd because, you have some people that won't even put in because of what they've heard in the past. You know what I mean? And they get discouraged and don't want to even try. And it goes back to what I said, man. You have to tell me no. Like that's just the way I am. And people try to talk me out of applying for public affairs. No, I never did that. I wouldn't be here talking to you today. But they was like, "Oh man, you can't do that. That's for these type. You got to have this much time." I say, "Well, they gonna have to tell me that. I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna put my best foot forward in this interview. And I don't know nobody up there, but I hope they remember me when I leave." And it worked out for the best. So you miss every shot you don't take, and more minorities need to put in for those spots within our department. And if they feel like they're not getting a fair shake, that's when they need to reach out to APOL or reach out to the other unions, and then something can be done. But they put things in place to try and stop that from happening.
And I think to piggyback what you just said too, that is absolutely true. I was reading an article with the FBI, and they were saying that they don't have enough people of color in the department to get to those higher rankings. I think it was, the FBI agency is, is very large, but they don't have that many minorities in there. And so I know they were trying to start this whole new thing up, trying to get more people and recruit more people into becoming more FBI agents, because we don't have enough minorities applying for the jobs that they want to see have a different outcome.
Yeah, and I think it goes to what we were just talking about, man. Some people already have talked themselves out of opportunity. They've already talked themselves out of taking the shot. How you gonna hit the game winner if you don't even pick the ball up and shoot it?
It might be LeBron.
There you go.
So question 10, can you share one of your most heartfelt stories?
Well, okay. Well, I can I share kind of like a half and half. Yeah. I had one when I was on patrol, and I had one in the community outreach where I really felt like I was able to help somebody. Nobody knows this story except my partner who rode with me when I was on patrol on the south side of Houston. We came across a elderly white gentleman named Mr. Neighbor in his 70s, almost 80s. He was living, I didn't even know this place existed. It was basically like an assisted living, but these people, they live by themselves, but they're blind. They were blind. And so he had, fell down and kind of got disoriented. And we were out there. HFD was there, which is the fire department. And they were trying to figure out, oh, he's good. He checks out. He just had a little gash on his head. And we could have just got our information and left. But I'm looking around. And I'm like, Mr. Neighbor, where's your family at? He said, oh, I don't have any family in Houston. I said, okay. So who checks on you? Oh, just my nurse. I said, okay. And I'm looking around and I'm like, do you know what day it is? He said, oh, no, I just asked my nurse when she comes. He didn't have a calendar. He didn't have a clock. He didn't know what time it was. So, nobody had to tell me to do it. I just went online and bought him a Braille calendar and a Braille clock. A clock that told him the time when he pressed the button. And then I would just check on him every weekend and go take him something to eat. And I had a good relationship with him until I left, patrol on the South Side. And that was something that I felt like, I made an impact on that man, and hopefully he remembers me in a positive light. Because I know I just saw him as a human. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't a police officer. Like, man, this guy needs some help, man. Nobody's checking on him. I wouldn't want anybody to forget about me like that, right? So that was one. And then me in public affairs, man, I was able to help so many people in public affairs. I would go back to my old middle school, my old elementary school, and my neighborhood that I grew up in Studiowood, right?
Yes.
Nobody told me to go back. You have programs, people call, they ask you to come speak. It's just on my heart to go back, and I built a relationship with those counselors, and I was like, give me your boys, that you're having trouble with, that are acting out in class that you really can't reach. And I'm going to meet with them one-on-one, and I'm going to talk to them for however long it takes with each one of them and try and build a relationship with them. And I started doing that every other week. And then when I would go back the next week, they would be suspended. And I was like, okay, well, I need to come back every week. And so I was going back every week and just holding them accountable and setting positive goals for them, and then giving them, if you do this, I can, talk to them about letting you do this, right?
You're rewarded.
Well, I came across this one kid, and he was in a domestic violence situation where the dad was beating on him and his mom, mainly the mom, and they were running away to trying to get away from him. And they had just came to Houston from San Antonio, and they were staying in a pay-by-the-day hotel. And the mom was doing what she could to try and make the money to keep them in there so they have somewhere to sleep. And he was embarrassed. The kid's very smart, GT, but he just didn't have any structure and accountability so that he could be successful. So I continued to meet with him. They ended up running out of money and were homeless. So I was able to help them get into a homeless shelter, but it was way on the other side of town. And so he was catching like 4 buses to get to school. He was falling asleep. So I had to go talk to his teachers to tell him, like, let him make it. He's dealing with adult problems. Long story short, they ended up placing them into an apartment, and they didn't have anything in there, but they were just happy to have somewhere to stay. They were sleeping on the floor. And so I just went around and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna pay out of pocket, and I'm gonna see if I can find like some scratch and dent stuff at one of these furniture stores and see if somebody may want to donate something to them. And I ended up coming across Buy Right Furniture and met a very nice gentleman over there, and told him the story, and he was like, you know what, I grew up in a abusive household. That little boy was me. He said, let me see what I can do. He came back with a piece of paper and he said, here you go. We loading up the truck. We'll follow you over there. The man furnished the whole apartment for free. The whole apartment for free. Like beds, end tables, kitchen tables, couches, all that stuff out of the kindness of his heart, because like I said, you never know who may have gone through what you went through or are going through it, and they can learn from what you're going through, or they see it as an opportunity to help you. And if it wasn't for me going back to that school and coming across that young man who I still am in contact with, I wouldn't have been able to link them up and by right be able to help them out. So those were 2 instances where I felt like, man, I'm glad I'm doing this job. I feel like I'm actually making a positive impact on people.
I think that you should be an inspiration to every other officer in this country, that they need to start looking up to you. But listen, when I say that, brother, it's a bigger thing. And I was just speaking the other night about this. When you do a good deed and nobody knows what you did, and God bless you in a greater good. Because when you do that, the hidden move, you're not doing it for spotlight. You're not doing it just to say, hey, I'm an officer, record this. Well, from this man that can't see, and you're doing that, that man will continue to remember you even in his darkest hours, because he knew that you were his shining light. And you're an inspiration to me, but I know you're an inspiration to everyone in Houston, because you're making a true impactful movement. You're moving things in a way that they should have been moved a long time ago. And
I appreciate that. I appreciate it.
Because, those stores that you have, I used to have friends like that. My friends, I had a friend in my 8th grade year. His mom completely forgot his birthday. Did not know it was his birthday. I mean, completely. She was sitting on the couch with her boyfriend. We walked inside the house. I said, hey, yo, I told my mom, she was like, we're going to just take him to West Palm for his birthday. He was like, okay, let me go get my clothes. When we walked inside the house, they ain't say nothing. She was like, did you clean up? Because you didn't do nothing. I mean, she was going off on him. And then he was like, I'm just going to go. Mind you, he's an alternative school. His grades are failing. He's coming to school with shoes that's not right. And I'm giving him all of my shoes. And my mom like, you give him all of your shoes, you ain't going to have no more shoes. So you got all of this going on. And he continued to be an impactful person. He never let that dim his light. That was not him. His situation was not his alternative. It was not his end goal. And that's what I mean when you say help your fellow American. You didn't see color. You didn't say this was an old white man. And you don't see color when you say that. You're right. I'm not saying you say that. But
yeah, no. I mean, I understand what you're saying. I mean, it's just it's about people. That's what this job is about, man. It's about helping people.
And that's what I think of too. I think that is very important that you know that a lot of people know that you can help someone, because I had an incident at my job in a drive-thru, and this dude came up to me. He was like, "It's a black dude that's over there just asking for all this stuff. He need to get a job." My alternative goal was, I told my manager, I said, "Hey, here's my card. Can you please go ahead and give him 2 number 2 meals? Go ahead and take it outside." And then after that, I gave him my mom's business card. Because I think that you should always help someone, no matter the circumstance, no matter the color, and you don't have to speak about it. Just leave it be, and they'll do all the talking for itself.
You don't, and that's why I told you, man. Like, people who know me and like take the time to get to know me and know why I do what I do, they don't question my actions and why I do it. The only thing that you see on social media is what I show you. You don't see half the stuff that I'm out here doing or what I was able to do, because the reason I put that stuff on social media is because, like you said, unfortunately, you turn the news on, you're going to see more negative than positive. So I have to share something, you know what I mean, that I'm out here doing. I'm having a positive interaction with kids so that people can see, hey, this is actually going on, because we're in the day and time now where if you don't see it, it didn't happen. But I'm the exact same way as you. I do it because I know that blessing's going to come back. Amen. Right. And my mom raised me to always, help people. And I've always had that, because even when I ain't had nothing growing up, I still was helping people. And you never know what people are going through. They come to work, they come to school, kids come to school, and teachers just peg them off as being this kind of kid, that kind of kid. You don't know what kids are going through. And sometimes those kids are going through, adult issues that the teachers aren't even having to deal with. But they ask a lot of teachers, because I worked in the education system, so I'm not putting it on them. But you never know what people are going through, man. So when you have an opportunity to help them out, you never know how much it might really make a difference in that person's life.
Absolutely. And I 100% agree with you. And thank you again, brother. That really was heartfelt. And now a word from our sponsors, Ben and Jerry's. And if you're in Houston and you're watching this live, you can get free Ben and Jerry's ice cream. Just take a screenshot and send it via email. Once again, if you're in Houston, you get a free scoop of ice cream. Now, I'm telling you, that's some real good stuff. Just send it via email. And then from our CenterState Bank and big brothers and big sisters of the Central Florida and the Verdi EcoSchool and the Hey Blue Initiative, thank you all again for sponsoring us. And it's been a heart-warming set of questions for me. You answered all of them correctly. You gave me, what we were looking for as young people. You gave us something that we can go off, and I hope that you will continue to mentor me on my journey.
Yeah, of course, man.
Absolutely. So just now you can start with your questions.
Okay. So my questions were more so, I asked these questions so that I can get your answer, and then we can find common ground on it. And even if you feel a certain way, I don't expect you to change your mind on it. But if it could be used as an educational tool, so that if I come across this situation, I'll know how to react to it because of what Sergeant Lahar told me.
Well,
okay?
I'm here for education.
All right. My first question is going to be, if and when you're driving and you see those red and blue lights behind you, what is the first thing that goes through your mind? Be honest.
OS. Was I speeding? Can I remember? Do I have my wallet? Is the insurance updated?
Mm-hmm.
How much am I on? Those are the first things that come through my mind.
Yeah, and that's just the way you're wired, right? Like, yeah. bro, I still get like that when I get pulled over, and I'm a police officer. Like it's in you, man. Subconsciously, it's in you, right? And I hate to hear that. You know, it's just kind of like a fear. And then the stuff that you see on, you know, unfortunately the incidents that have happened in different places, that doesn't help either. But I'll continue to talk to you. But what I will tell you this, man, just a couple of steps to take. Always kind of keep your wallet close to you. And I don't know how it is up there in Florida, but you don't have to have your insurance card. You can show it to you on your phone, and that's valid too. But if you get pulled over at nighttime, what you want to do is pull over, roll all your windows down and turn your dome light on. Because when that police officer walks up, he's looking, he's assessing, he's trying to see if anybody's hiding in the backseat, you know, with anything that could possibly hurt them, right? And if you have all those windows down, that light on, he don't have to look that hard. So now that takes him down. Okay, the alert level goes down. Now, when you pull over, turn your car off, take the keys out, hold them in your hands, and put both your hands outside the window and just relax. And as he sees that, the car is not on, I don't have to worry about this person taking off and driving off and dragging me down the street, right?
Yes.
I see both of their hands. That they teach you in pretty much every police department that the hands are what can hurt you. You can't see somebody's hands, you don't know what they have in it or don't have in it, and that's a threat. But if I see both your hands with the keys, I'm like, all right, cool. And then when the officer comes up there, just then most time they're gonna be, do you know why I stopped you today? No, sir, I don't. Or yes, sir, I do. I ran the light. Just follow directions. And I'm not gonna justify somebody coming up there and being rude, because that's my pet peeve. I don't like rude people. But if you feel like an officer has handled you a certain way, that's not a debate practice, and that's not the courtroom for you to be going back and forth with that officer. Let them do what they're gonna do, and then ask for their badge and their name, their badge number and their name, and they go file a formal complaint. Absolutely. And I hear a lot of you. Did you know that? Did you know you had that option to do that?
Yes, you know, I come from a political background, but it happened to me and my sister. And the first thing she did, she was like, do you know who I am? And the officer was like, no. Her stepfather was a fire department chief. And she called him up. And the first thing she said, we're not going to argue. Just go ahead and, you know, do the paperwork. The biggest thing is, too, my grandmother also taught me, she said, if you feel like it's dark enough, just keep driving real slow.
Yeah, so you go to a lighter spot. Yeah.
So you go to a place that's more safer. A more safer spot, or you just go over there and you make sure, but don't just drive to a speedy as ready, because they're gonna think that now you're in a high speed chase. So just drive real slow.
Same. That's perfect. That's perfect. I do the same thing. I'm not gonna tell you to do anything that I won't do and that I don't do when I'm pulled over. So that's the first question. Number 2, what do you think can be done to cut down on or completely erase terrible incidents such as what transpired in Minnesota with George Floyd?
I won't say it's a quota, but a bias. Because it wasn't George Floyd, you know, he was, you know, the movement, you know, he started this big movement, but it happened to so many young brothers of color that we don't know. Like the incident in Georgia with the dude that was arrested and put in jail that had to sit in his own crap for 10 days and he passed away. You have incidents like those, and the only way we can truly do that is making intelligent stops, getting the people. You're not going off a race thing. You're going off, okay, I've been trained to do this. I know when this is going wrong. Use your intelligence to make the right choices. If you don't use your intelligence, or you don't use your education, or you don't use your educational background, you're not going to make those right decisions. And then that falls back on you and your police department, because now you got so much heat on yourself, on the police department, on your family, news reporters, people that you never seen before, all at your door. So to save yourself that greater risk, just go ahead and make the intelligence stop. Don't, arrest this dude because this is what you think, or you think he has a gun. No, you need to see it first. Have enough evidence first before you go ahead and make that arrest.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And then I'll kind of piggyback you. It's not, even if it's not an arrest, man, like if you have somebody resisting arrest, they teach us. Once you have that person in handcuffs, man, like the scene is under control. Get that person up and put them in the back seat. Like there's no need to do anything extra. We have to fill out paperwork anytime we put our hands on a citizen down here in Houston. It's called a response to resistance form. And that is so that the supervisors can go back and basically make sure that it was warranted and it wasn't excessive. And I think more departments need to do that as well. It is tedious, but I think it's necessary. And again, I lean on communication. A lot of these incidents can be avoided if there was just better communication. And unfortunately, a lot of officers don't feel like they have to communicate. This is what I said, do what I said. No, this person pays the bills in the house. Like, you got to respect them just like they respect you. And you got to explain to them where you are in the investigation, and you'll get them to understand that, and they'll do it more willingly.
Amen. Thank you for teaching me that part. I never knew that.
You said what now?
I said thank you for giving me that information because I never knew that part.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So the third one, being that you have had the opportunity to interview and interact with police officers from various backgrounds, what would you say that black or brown child that may be afraid of the police because of something negative they've seen on television?
Have your own experience first. Don't go off of what you've seen happen to someone else. That's what we tend to do a lot. We like George Floyd, or we use other names as well. We haven't had those experiences, so you can't say that happened to you. That's like saying this college did what, but you never went to that college. Yeah. So making sure that you have your own experience first, so you can say, well, mine didn't go that way, but I feel for that person. So that's what I agree. Your first experience.
I agree. And then don't just use it as an opportunity to jump in on the conversation and just keep like, when people are saying, man, I had a bad experience. Man, me too. This, that, and that. That's your chance to be like, yeah, I hear that. But look, if you ever had this is what you need to do. This is how you file a complaint. Or I had a good experience, and, maybe you need to talk to this guy. Talk to this guy about your experience, and he could probably, do something for you, or you can get a better understanding of what may have happened out there and why it happened.
Because I had the same thing happen. Okay, to piggyback off that, we at the movie theaters, we were kicked out the movie theaters because they said we were loud. You know how teenagers are in the movie theaters. The man was patrolling the movie theaters, and they kicked us out. But it was the color kicked out. We all got kicked out. And I'm like, hey, it was white people in there too that was just doing the same exact thing. Why aren't they not out? A lot of people's like, no, don't speak to him. Don't do that. I said, sir, at a very young age, because I was taught, what is your badge number? I was like, we're not finna argue. And then I told my mom, I was like, Mom, I told him I need his badge number because I was like, Mom, and I didn't even know half of what I was saying. I was just saying a bunch of stuff. And the man turned around to me, he said, do you know why you were kicked out? I said, no, you kicked out the wrong group. And next thing you know, they spoke with my mom. The situation was resolved, but it was bigger than what we thought it was. Yeah.
But I mean, I really, and that's the smart and like mature way to go about it, and you did it at a young age, so that more power to you for that. But even when I see people like cussing and going back and forth and having their phone out, I'm like, I get why you're doing it, but you're really not that's not gonna help the situation. Just do what he did. Get it and go file it. You ain't got to do all that. Is that for likes, or is that to try and make the officer do what he's supposed to do? But, that's neither here nor there. Number 4, what do you believe to be the most important emotional trait a police officer must have when beginning a career in law enforcement?
Emotional. I can't say be emotionless. That's something to think about. But
Want me to help you out?
Nope. I think I got it. Being open-minded.
Okay.
Being open-minded. I won't, because emotions, you can't have too much emotions tied. You can have it now with the heart, what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
But don't have too much emotions when you have to make that tough decision.
Mm-hmm.
That is a very intelligent decision. Do you have to get this arrest? And don't go, oh, I don't, but, I just seen them yesterday. Do you have to arrest this person off, make that intelligent decision, be open-minded?
Okay. Mine would be empathy. Like, I feel like a lot of times people may not have come from the backgrounds of the people that they're policing. So it's hard for them to empathize and be like, I can't understand why they so mad because somebody, did this or whatever to their house, or did this or that, whatever to their home, or they arguing over $10. That might be their last $10. If you ain't never just had $10 and that was your last $10, it ain't never been that important to you. So just having empathy and putting yourself in their shoes and be like, you know what, if that was my last $10, I'd be hot too. I'd be upset. So just being able to empathize, I feel like it would help police officers out a lot.
I 100%, because too, that goes back to, the recorder, have that sympathy, right? Have that sympathy for the person that pulls out their phone. Because I think that's the only way now that Black people, especially in our culture, we feel secure. You use that as your evidence. And I think a lot of times you hear officers say, put your phone away, put your phone away. And it's like, no, I'm not putting my phone away. I know my right.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, incidents of when the young gentleman was killed in the car on live with his wife.
That was crazy.
Those type of instances, yes. So have sympathy for those people because of what you're afraid of. I think that's the biggest thing to a lot of people. A lot of officers are afraid.
And that's, I mean, you can't really stop somebody from pulling their camera out. Like, if that makes you feel more comfortable, then pull it out. Because I'm not out here doing nothing I'm not supposed to. So I got a camera on. I mean, you could save your hand holding a camera up. Mine's recording right now. You know what I mean? So that's why I'll tell them. But it's a difference between holding the camera up and being like, officer, I just want to record this just for my safety. That's fine. Or like, no, you ain't going to. That's a whole different thing. You know what I mean? It's more instigating. But you still do have the right to do it, because as long as you're not interfering with the investigation by holding your camera up, you don't have to put it up.
I think that's true. But then I can see where, because you have your officer pull out the gun first, right?
Yeah.
So if he pulls that gun out first, how do we, let's go ahead and do a switcheroo. We're going to back it up. Hey, I'm sorry I pulled my gun out. I'm sorry. By accident, I didn't check first. I assumed I told you to reach for the glove department, and when you did, I just still wanted to shoot you because of my security. I won't say that's for every officer.
Yeah.
But the mainstream of getting that type of connection, the ones that, the heart feeling ones, we do have majority of those too, where officers still pull out that gun for no reason because of I'm 17 and people think I'm 21. Mm-hmm. So we have to, think about that part as well.
Yeah, I think that goes back to training and, continuing to train and, and understanding that I always had an understanding when I go into a disturbance, which is one of the most dangerous calls that you can go to, that if people are arguing, they're having a disagreement, just because I show up in uniform doesn't mean everybody's going to be calm. And I understand that certain cultures raising their voice, that's just the way that they talk because they're very emotional. That's not a threat. So, when somebody raises their voice, you should get scared. You should be like, okay, this person was upset before I came. I'm going to continue to stay calm so that they can become calm. And if they don't, then I may have to detain them so that they can calm down. But, if you go in there yelling, they yelling, now you on 10, ain't nowhere to go but down. You can't go in there on 10. You got to stay at 2 and bring them down, right?
Yes,
but
absolutely.
I feel like that comes with knowing people.
Yes.
And that's training.
You're absolutely right.
Number 5. If you had the opportunity to speak to a class full of cadets on their way to beginning a career in law enforcement, what advice would you give them to improve on the relationship between at-risk youth and the police?
Be understanding.
Okay.
Keep your integrity, but be understanding, but be willing to learn from other people. You don't never know who you will learn from. And don't judge someone off their character, but not of the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
Yeah.
And like I said before, keep your intelligence, make the right decisions at the right time. The same way we have to do with ADHD, you have to do, everything must be in the way in order for you to make it that way. So if you want to make sure that you're that officer or you want to get promoted, then you make sure that you do the stuff and you stand by what you did. You know that you made the right decision. Just like when you make that stop was a stop. It wasn't extra. It wasn't, because I seen this. Make sure that you're willing to learn.
Yeah, never stop learning, man. No matter how old you get, and you can stop on the corner and learn something from somebody out there panhandling. I mean, you learn from experience. They may have had an experience that you haven't. So number 6, what do you think the most important skill a police officer must have and continue to work at to be great at their job?
To be great at their job.
It doesn't have to be physical.
Serving.
Okay.
That's all you have to do is just continue to serve. And that'll make you, like how you're doing, you're serving your community. So we may not see it now, but I bet you in the long run that you will see a greater outcome.
Yep. You plant those seeds, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I think communication, I'm a little biased. I feel like a lot of people are socially awkward and then they become police officers and they don't just automatically stop being socially awkward. If you're socially awkward and you come out to a situation where you have to talk, like, how does that work? You have to be able to talk. You have to be able to communicate. You have to be able to let people know where you are in the investigation. They have a better understanding. They calm down. This family member over here is upset because their family member's in handcuffs. Don't just tell them to be quiet. Go explain to them, hey, this is why they're in the handcuffs. I'm not going to take your family member nowhere without letting you know what's going on. They're not going to jail yet. It's not hard, but I feel like enough people don't work on their communication skills.
I think that's absolutely right, because some of the time, 9 times out of 10, a lot of situations could be avoided if we were able to communicate with each other instead of speaking over each other, but communicate and then listening to each other to see both points of view.
I agree. Number 7, do you think an officer coming from a background lacking diversity who is placed in a diverse community is comfortable with their surroundings when doing their job?
So, officer that came from a diverse community?
No, a community that lacks diversity. And then they go to a diverse community.
They can't. They won't. It eats them up alive. That's why you have so many situations like the one in Georgia Ford. Not trying to bring them up, but they just had the settlement.
You said little settlement?
No, it was a big settlement.
Yeah,
his name, Chavion, I think that's how you say it. Chavion stands for supremacy, white supremacy, against his last name, the officer that killed George Floyd.
I did not know that.
I looked it up today, and I seen it because after the settlement, I said I have to look this. I like to go by names because I feel like your name holds a title to everything that you do. It's you. And when I looked it up, it's it stands for white supremacy towards a group, or it's they feel that women are not equal to them or minorities are not equal to them. So that was something that I learned.
I'm gonna have to look that up when we get done, sir. Not saying that you're not telling the truth, but I want to read more into that. That's crazy. Wow.
Yep.
Okay. What do you think, number 8, what do you think can be done to better educate officers on cultural diversity?
Giving officers true real life classes, like how to do, giving them something like having true doctors, therapists, psychologists, because you guys have a job. You see things that I can only fathom, but giving people that option, hey, you need to go see this doctor. It's a requirement that you go see this person, so they can make sure that when they make decisions, they come from a authentic train of thought. So I think it's something that y'all, having a doctor or a psychologist in there to speak to every officer, a few of them have a session or have that day. I used to go to Catholic school, so they used to have like the day that chapel, but we used to have a day where you just sit inside the classroom with the priest, but just you and the priest, and it used to be like 12 different priests, and be tons of students just waiting to go in the classroom. Don't stop. But you go in there. You go in there.
No, I didn't go to Catholic school. That just seems intimidating as I don't know what.
No, it's actually you confess to your sins, but it doesn't leave the room. So whatever you did, it stays in that room. They can't report it to the teacher of the school. It's just they pray with you, and then they say that God heard your prayer.
Okay.
And that you forgive for all your sins. So I think that's something that's important.
I got you. I got on the main line. I got you. So yeah, HPD. Just to kind of let you know, we do have classes, yearly classes of culture diversity refreshers. We have people and community leaders come in from all different backgrounds and put on classes to speak and try and educate the officers. It's up to the officers to be receptive, but they do it. We also have a cultural diversity bus tour where we go to the different parts of town and have people from those areas come out and speak, and they go to and see different monuments and important pieces in history around Houston for each one of those backgrounds. And then they have another class called Building Trust from Trauma, and they talk about some of the things that we're talking about right now, and they make people do uncomfortable breakout activities and stuff to like make them think outside the box. And I think that that's like awesome. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people gonna complain, but I'm like, you know what? Like
it's needed.
It's needed. Unfortunately, it's needed. I mean, it is what it is.
Houston, y'all have made so much progress. I think we need to start following y'all on a lot of our police issues. We have council meetings, the little ones that you always have, council meetings that people meet up. I don't think that we took that much action in Florida to ensure the safety of everyone. If you do that, I guarantee you that you have so many great officers on the front line that can be understanding and be like, hey, I was just here. I met so-and-so. It's all about building connections. But I think it's much needed for every police department, because I think that's the biggest thing. A lot of police departments don't have the same exact values or traits.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you got people coming from all over the world and different backgrounds, socioeconomic statuses, different circumstances, and you all expect them to do the job the same way. That's not going to happen. So I do think it's important that you continue to educate yourself on other cultures, because you can't handle, somebody in of Latin descent the same way that you handle somebody from the Asian descent. And you can't take it as, if you're coming in contact with somebody who's Asian, them not making eye contact, you can't take it as being suspicious. That's just a part of their culture, but you have to know that. And the only way you know that is by educating yourself. So my number 9, it kind of piggybacks off of 8. If the officers do continue to educate themselves, or they are going to these classes, do you see it making a difference and helping them do their job more effectively?
Yes, I was listening to a TED Talk, probably was last month. Okay. And that's where I got the idea from as well. She did a experiment. They did it on the police department in California.
Uh-huh.
And they basically had to do the whole training, doing the whole tour guide kind of, and taking those officers out. She said, and that's where we get the intelligence. She said, then you start to see officers making the right decisions and right choices, but also feeling comfortable when they go into certain predicaments. And she said, I'm not saying that it will work, but she said we've seen a tremendous decrease in the stops, the amount of stops alone. She said she believed it was 36,000 stops. She said, but it dropped tremendously to like 12,000. So it was just like a drop in numbers itself. And it spoke a lot of volume to what the police department is trying to do in 2021 to fix the errors and mistakes that we had in 2020.
I mean, I think we're past that. I mean, that's just the way it was. And, we're never going to move forward if we just keep looking back and continuing to repeat the same mistakes. And that goes for the police department, too. There's so many common sense changes that this chief has made. Like, could never have this. This is my first year ever having this. And then having visible tattoos. Like, it's 2021. Like, we don't all need to look like we just got off of the boat with the Marines. Like, we need to look like the people that we're going out here and interacting with. I feel like they're more comfortable when they see somebody that they can relate to, rather than somebody is just like, I'm out here to get this information to do my job. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So little small changes, like we said, it's not going to change all overnight, but I feel like we're headed in the right direction.
Absolutely.
And the last question number 10. What is the first thing that you would change about whatever? So let's say you're in Florida, and what's the first thing that you would change if you became chief of police?
Where my money is being put.
Where your money's being put. Okay.
I think that, when communities, for example, we receive a large amount of money, and equipment does cost a lot of money.
It does.
But learning to get that revenue and put it back on that community. I don't like the way this building look. Okay, so let me tell my guys the plan that we should have for this building. We believe that, okay, it's a drug house. This is where the crime rate is. Let's build that up. We're going to build a teen center. We're going to build something there to build that community and make a bigger outreach. Hey, this is a place where you can come and chill with officers on the day. Hey, this is a place where you come do your homework. Officer help you do your math work. If we can do that, I think that's when you can start to see a whole different environment.
That's a great answer, man. That is a great answer. It makes me feel like you're going to be on somebody's city council in the next like 8 years, man. Like, I could definitely see you being a city official or a leader, because you seem like you see things, you take a step back and see things big picture, and you think outside the box. And don't ever lose that. Continue to do that. Continue to educate yourself, man. And like I said, I look forward to continuing to talk to you. And I really enjoyed this interview.
Thank you. I'm hoping to be on your podcast soon.
Oh, man, come on.
I'm ready. Listen, I'm ready. So that I think that was it.
Yeah, that's 10. And we got one more, right?
Yes, the 21st question that comes from the audience. Okay. This comes from Mrs. Robinson. Does this mean we shouldn't feel angry? Breonna Taylor could have been any of us.
Okay. No, I mean, I feel like everybody's feelings are justified whenever they, either experience something or see something. Because when I see things on the news like similar to that or close to that, I get upset too. Just because I work in law enforcement doesn't mean that I don't remember who I was before I started working in law enforcement, and I forgot who I am when I take this stuff off after 8 hours. Right. So I think those feelings are justified, but I would say don't walk around just mad. You know what I mean? Because that doesn't really help anything. And then that anger is going to eat away at you. Find out ways to put things in place to hold officers accountable in your area wherever you are. If you feel like that's something that's going on in your area, you need to get with the city officials. You need to get with the council members. and make sure that doesn't happen where you live. And if it did happen where you live, make sure it doesn't happen again. But walking around mad, and going to the barbershop and just talking about how bad things are changes nothing. Changes nothing.
And I think that too, speaking of the settlement, we have to stop as people taking things that just come at us. If you want change, continue that fight. Said money don't matter. I lost my loved one because of what your officer did. I would like to see him in jail for life. I want this law to be changed. That officer shouldn't be doing that type of thing. And Breonna Taylor, their attorney general, did nothing to help the situation. I think 9 times out of 10, a lot of people know it's him, but 9 times out of 10, people don't look towards him. They keep looking at the police department, which that's not the people that's going to change it.
I need a system reset. It's not just at the police officer level, in certain cities, but yeah, man. Like I said, but then I look at it like this: like when families get those settlements, and by I don't think it means that okay, we got this money now, we're okay with whatever happens. Like I still feel like they want that officer or whoever it is that did wrong to their loved one to be held accountable and get the full sentence. I don't think they're like, oh, you know what, I'm still mad, but I'm not as mad. Like, no, they feel like I can't get my family member back. I appreciate the money. All of his kids are good from now on. They don't have to worry about having to pay for college, but that can't bring him back. He don't need to be doing that job no more. And we need to make sure we go through the judicial system to make sure that he's held accountable.
And man, to piggyback off of that before we close, you remember the incident that happened last year with the officer that ran into the man's apartment, and she thought it was hers.
In Dallas, yeah.
Yep, in Dallas. Okay, so when that happened, you remember his brother spoke, and when his brother spoke, he spoke volume when he said it. He said, "It's the hardest thing, but I forgive you for what you did."
I remember that.
They didn't take nothing from it, right? They didn't get nothing back. He said, "I accept what happened.
Can't change it, yeah.
I can't change it." I just think that, sometimes we do take settlements as it is, and then the fight will lose. That shows people, okay, it's over now. Hey, and that does that to a nation. I think when Martin Luther King were having a fight, they didn't have that much money, but they raised enough money in the community. The community will raise that money for them to continue that fight. You can continue that revenue. So it's just that we have to continue to keep our fight. That's the biggest thing. We lose our egos in the most vulnerable places. We forget why we were fighting in the first place.
Yeah, you just saying don't take your foot off the gas, because it's gonna incite emotion and it's gonna be relevant as long as it's on TV. And as soon as they stop putting it on the news every day, people stop talking about it as much. People stop being up in arms about it as much. But if you keep your foot on the gas in a situation like that where you feel like something is wrong, that's the only way you're gonna get change.
Absolutely. And thank you again for being on here, Sergeant Jeremy Lahar. Once again, this is a phenomenal man. As you can see, he is bringing real change. He is really making a difference in the communities. So thank you all again for joining us tonight, and a big shout out to everyone. And the last question is a 20-second question.
Okay.
You still got love from me?
Always.
Amen. And I still got love for you, brother. So thank you again to our sponsors, Ben and Jerry's. Please don't forget, people, take a screenshot of you watching this live. Take a screenshot of it, send it via email, and send it to Ben and Jerry's in Houston, right there in Sergeant Jeremy Lahar's community. If you take a screenshot of that, you will get a free scoop of ice cream from Ben and Jerry's. Trust me, that's some good ice cream. Trust me. And then from our CenterState Bank, big brothers and big sisters of Central Florida, the Verdi EcoSchool and the Hey Blue Initiative. Join us for our next 21 Questions episode on March 26, 2021. And when we welcome Sergeant Dan Jenkins. So please, and simply the why. So thank you, everyone, and please have a great night. It was nice meeting you all, and watch again.